Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Royal Instinct. Today, we're doing a different style video. We are discussing, we are dissecting, we are going to delve deep into why I believe that Ange Postecoglou, the former Tottenham manager, the former Celtic manager, the former Nottingham Forest manager, is perfect for Real Madrid. Okay. And this is a take that you are not going to find anywhere else on the internet. And it is a wild take. But it kind of makes sense, right? For the type of club that Real Madrid is. Okay. Um, Real Madrid is a club that is elite. It is steeped in history. It is steeped in tradition. It is a tradition of winning. Okay. They are the first ever team to win the European Cup. They won 5 consecutive trophies. And they also hold the record for most ever wins, which is 15. Their latest one coming in 2023, 2020, yeah, 2024 and 2000. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Um, and yeah, 2024 and 2022. Um, and it is a club with superstars. It is loaded with the elite players of the world, and it is notoriously a difficult dressing room to manage. Okay, it has had several managers who were the creme de la creme, the top of their game, the elites of the world, such as Jose Mourinho in recent history. Okay, Carlo Ancelotti, Zinedine Zidane. Right, then Carlo Ancelotti came back to win the last 2 European trophies for the club. And it is a club that even when the chips are down, when they are not on form, when they're not playing tantalizing football, they have a winning mentality, a winning streak that is, it doesn't come from grit and determination. It comes from the juggernaut of the history, the allure, the myth from the club, right? It is the myth of the Galacticos, right? That springs fear into the opponents, the fear into the other team that they are playing against. And you may be better than them on paper. However, the the stars align and destiny prevails and allows Real Madrid to get over the line over and over again. Okay. And this idea came to me when I was watching a video, an interview of Ange Postecoglou, where he was discussing his time as a Tottenham manager, his time as a Celtic manager, his whole history and philosophy. Okay, I advise you to go over the to the overlap to, I think, Stick to Football podcast. It's got Gary Neville, Roy Keane, Ian Wright, Jamie Carragher. All them. You know, people. I don't know what the lady's name is, so yeah, I can't for the life of me think what her name is. um, yeah, and they had Ange there. They were interviewing him, and his whole philosophy of football comes from Australia, right? Where his time in Australia, when they were playing football, he had the Greek mentality of watching flair football. His father was a proponent. He loved to watch flair attacking players. Teams that are on the front foot, and Ange, that kind of seeped into his psyche, and that is the philosophy he carried forward. Then when he was a player, he actually was managed by a former Galactico, right? A former Real Madrid legend, a Real Madrid great, Puskas. Okay, um, and Puskas knows everything that is to know about Real Madrid, the demands of Real Madrid. He created history for Real Madrid, and his philosophy was to outscore your opponent. To be on the front foot, to be aggressive, um, and you know, bring a winning mentality through attacking positive football. Right at the time, we are in a crisis here in the Premier League. People are complaining that this is the worst ever Premier League in history, in modern history, because it is very boring. It's very defensive football. People are saying that the modern game, the modern tactics have ruined football, the spectacle of football, the enjoyment of football. And Real Madrid came up against Arsenal last season, right? They were beaten over two legs by Arsenal, which is a very well coached team, a very defensive team, a very organized team, okay, a very physical team. Arteta is seen as a modern manager, and when Carlo Ancelotti, who is seen more of a laissez-faire manager, he allows the talent to flourish. He knows how to manage big egos, and it was more of a laid back approach, right? Where he allowed Tony Cruz and Modric to kind of dictate the tempo of the team, and allow the star players such as Vinicius, Bellingham, Rodrigo to deliver out on the pitch, right? Benzema as well was part of one of those teams. So they were kind of the coaches, they were the decision makers on the field, right? So Carlo Ancelotti didn't really coach those teams. He allowed them to express what they felt was the right decision to make on the pitch, and that allowed the attacking um, power, the attacking players, the flair players to you know to really do their thing, right? To score the goals, to drive them forward towards success, towards victory. And Tony Cruz and Modric were kind of dictating it, pulling the strings in the background. And there were some hardened defenders, Alaba, sorry, Rudiger, Carvajal. These players, Thibaut Courtois in goal, they were kind of the defensive rock, right? Then they had two midfield maestros, elite quality midfielders, dictating the pace of the game, dictating the rhythm of the game, threading through key passes, making key decisions, and allowing the people at the front, Bellingham, like I said, Rodrigo, Benzema in the past, Vinicius, to Valverde to be the attacking threat that they are, right? And when Real Madrid lost to Arsenal last season, it was seen as a big failure by Florentino Perez, I've also already actually done a video about him on this channel, which suggest that you check it out. And they decided to go more of a modern direction, a new direction, a more direction of a modern manager, which is why they brought in Xabi Alonso, who is also a former Galactico. He has won the Champions League in 2014 with Real Madrid. And when they brought him in, they thought, right, this is going to be the new revolution, the new evolution of Real Madrid, a modern possession-based, tactically flexible team, a team that is allowed to be, you know, that a team that is well coached, well drilled, and because that they have the best players, that they should be able to really dominate now going forward. And many people, myself included, thought that might be the case. However, what Alonso found very quickly, is that Real Madrid isn't a team open to these ideas because they have the world's best players, right? They have £100 million players. They have Kylian Mbappe. They have Jude Bellingham. They have all these quality players, but that quality, that star power comes with huge egos. And Xabi Alonso, you know, given all his experience, wasn't able to manage that dressing room when he had to make decisions to take players off the field, like Vinicius. He took him off for one or two games, and he threw a hissy fit. He wasn't able to tell him why he was doing. He wasn't able to manage him well, and that caused a big rift in the dressing room. That caused a big collapse in communication between manager, coach, and the rest of the team, which is why he got the sack. And now you have Arbeloa in. In the dugout, he is making these decisions. He is coaching them, and he is kind of taking back a step of allowing more of a Ancelotti style approach. Okay, another little piece of history about Madrid is Jose Mourinho came to dethrone Barcelona. He came to manage over the new era of Galacticos, because there was two eras really. There was the start of 2000s, the team with Zidane, Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos, Figo, Raul, all those legends, Beckham. You had all those players in the team, and then you had Mourinho kind of led the second evolution of the Galacticos. You know, Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, Benzema, Modric, Alonso's part of that team, Ozil. Um, you know, I think Mourinho was gone when Bale came, but yeah, so he oversaw that. You know, Sergio Ramos in defense, Iker Casillas in goal, and he brought a winning mentality. He brought a winning culture. He got to, I believe, 3 semi-finals in a row in the Champions League, and you know, Real Madrid hadn't been in the semi-finals in years at that point. And then, but his coaching style was very volatile, was very demanding on the players. Right, he put in a winning mentality, a defensive mentality, but you know that can only get you so far. And it took Carlo Ancelotti's more, you know, gas off approach, you know, as in his management style was gas off, you know, hands off approach, and allowed, you know, just the players to be good players, right? And that, you know, calmness, that relaxed atmosphere, that relaxed attitude that he created allowed the players to flourish because they were world class players anyway. And then that is what got them over the line. That is how they were able to win 1 Champions League, La Decima. And then Zidane was able to build on that and bring in 3 in a row, which has not been done since the 70s. You know, he was able to bring that, you know, to that glory to Real Madrid, but that came off the back of that defensive minded, that winning mentality that Mourinho brought in. And if it wasn't for Mourinho, I don't think Ancelotti was able to do the job that was required. And the reason, okay, why I believe Ange Postecoglou is the perfect manager for Real Madrid is because he has a similar attributes. He has a winning attitude. Okay, now you know he's, you may say he's only managed in lower leagues, in the Scottish leagues. You know, he's only managed a club like Tottenham Hotspur, where the demands of winning aren't as great as, say, a Manchester United, a Liverpool, a Bayern Munich, for example, right? But he's been in tough environments, right? He had to manage the Scottish League, so you have to beat Rangers every year in the derby. You have to beat them to the title, and he was able to do that successfully for 2 years. He came to Tottenham, and you know he brought his attacking, you know, philosophy of football, and you know he got them over the line. He delivered a European trophy, a Europa League. Now you may say, you know, it's only the Europa League, but I will challenge you and say that, you know, that is the competition that he was in. Right. So what is he supposed to do? You can only play the competition that you're in, right? And he was able to deliver a trophy. And what really stuck out with me is the guy's got balls, right? Whether you like him or not, he has balls, right? Because in an interview, post, you know, I think it was post Arsenal, they were asking him like, you know, that do you believe you can achieve success with the team? And he flat out said that, you know, in my second year, I always win. Now, even me, right, like as an Arsenal supporter, I laughed at that. I thought, like, you absolute clown. And the media was very horrible to him. You know, they branded him as a clown. They you know, said that this is, you know, like some loser guy who's just some crazy guy just spewing nonsense. But he actually delivered a trophy, right? Now that, you know, whether you believe it was luck, whether whatever you believe, it was something that, you know, took balls to say, right? And if he failed, you know, people would have laughed at him. But because he, you know, the stars aligned for him and he got that trophy, he got the Europa League, he brought Spurs success where at a club where many managers have failed. You know, Jose didn't get a trophy, although he was sacked just before the Carling Cup final, the Carabao Cup final. Conte failed, Pochettino failed, even though he got them to a Champions League final. And finished runners up in the Premier League twice. You know, so you put him compared to that, and with a much more depleted team, you know, no Harry Kane, he was able to achieve success. And his style, we'll delve into style. Let's start off with this video, um, explaining his the incredible philosophy of Ange. We'll discuss it, and I believe he is the perfect man to lead the Galacticos.
Happening at Tottenham Hotspur. Ange Postecoglou has been.
By the way, these are all old videos discussing his transition to Tottenham. So, you know, we're looking at the philosophy behind it, not the fact that it's outdated video.
Begun the immense task of reforming this team in his image, and so far it's going pretty well. Now, as you probably know, I watch a lot of football, but I've got to be honest, I find this project in particular really exciting. And as far as the Premier League is concerned,
And that is one thing about Ange. You know, wherever he goes, his style of football is exciting. It is crazy. It is kamikaze football. It is, you know, totally insane how high his defensive line is, how many players he gets into attacking positions. But when it works, it absolutely is, you know, it is destructible to the opposition. When it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. Okay, but however, why I believe that this will work at Real Madrid is because they have the quality of players to handle the demands of this. Okay, they, you know, going forward, they have so much attacking quality. And one of the big things is with Alonso, he couldn't fit in all the superstars in the team and keep them all happy. Whereas I believe Ange will just be like, he'll pick the best teams, right, the best players for the team, right, put Mbappe in wherever, you know, he'll be like, yo, Mbappe, you go here, Vinicius, you go here, Rodrigo, you know, Jude, all running forward, Valverde behind him, Arla Goulet, you know, Diaz, you know, all these players, you know, he'll literally chuck them all on, right? And then it'll be like, all right, now you go work it out, which is in essence a little bit of what Ancelotti was doing. You know, he was like, you know, right, go on the pitch and go play and bring home a trophy, right? And literally with Real Madrid, right, the best players in the world, his attacking mindset, I believe, will deliver a number of trophies. He can build a dynasty, and I believe he will deliver the Champions League.
right now, Spurs are genuinely my favourite team to watch. So today I'm going to do my best to go into the footballing philosophy of Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, I mean, the guy just said that it's his favorite team to watch, which will keep the fans happy, right? Because also at Real Madrid, you have to navigate the fans who are very demanding, who will boo and whistle their own players if they're not performing. And because he brings this excitement to a team, he will win over the fans very, very quickly.
Specifically his tactics in possession, and at the end, explore why I think Tottenham has the potential to play the best football in England. So if you enjoy this video, consider leaving a like, and let's get in.
Think about that. This guy thought he had the potential to play the most effective football, the most attractive football in the Premier League, the most entertaining football. Isn't that what Real Madrid want? Isn't that what Real Madrid need? Right? Florentino Perez, you know, historically will just get rid of like the best defensive players. Like you know, wrongly got rid of Makelele, who was probably the key to Real Madrid's success. Um, you know, where, you know, so Perez will be won over by Ange. The fans will be won over, and because all the best players in the team, the big egos are playing, they'll be happy to listen to him, right? So he is that Ange Postecoglou might not work at any other club, right? Bar Real Madrid. Maybe he would probably work at Barcelona as well, similar sort of style. I mean, Hansi Flick, you know, his high defensive line is tearing up in La Liga. You know, and when it goes wrong, it really goes wrong for Barcelona at the moment. You know, his high line is something that is absolutely shambolic at times, right? But it does work because he has the high quality players to execute it.
I don't know
Attack, attack, attack. That is what Real Madrid want.
Ange Postecoglou, and I can't say for sure what's in his head, but from watching his team play, there seems to be a very clear philosophy behind his coaching. And although, yes, you'd say he's a possession coach, it doesn't feel like his team is set up necessarily just to control games through possession.
So it is the opposite of like Guardiola tiki taka, right? He is a possession coach, but basically, because to attack, you have to have possession, right? To score a goal, you have to have possession. But for him, it isn't about controlling the possession, like Barcelona did, like Johan Cruyff did, like Guardiola did. Guardiola's philosophy is more like if we keep the ball and we control the ball and allow the other team to run around us trying to get the ball off us, then we're in control. We're on the offense at that stage, right? We're the people in control of the game, and that way we can decide when we pull off our attacks, right? We will just literally pass you to death, control, 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 and then score a goal against you. Whereas with Ange, it is absolute kamikaze. He is go forward. He will want a goal every 10 minutes, right? He will never want to sit back. And I know he did in the Europa League to be pragmatic, but so he has got that in his locker as well. But his first thought is to go forward,
which is a major trend at the top level. Instead, it feels like the priority of this team is not just to control, but to destroy.
Yeah, think about that, right? To destroy someone, you need big weapons, right? You need powerful weapons. And what better weapons at your disposal than the players at Real Madrid, right? This is why Ange's football will work wonders for the club. This is why Ange ball will be a success at the Bernabéu.
To simply score as many goals as possible. And that goal-oriented philosophy is one of the reasons this team is so good to watch. What's impressed me about Tottenham so far is that they've been very good at disrupting the opponent's defensive shape to create space and create threat. But more specifically,
See, the problem with Alonso at Real Madrid was like he was trying to, to press them to dictate where the team was. Whereas like he just said there is like he will just move all his players into position to get a mistake in, and then you're just ready to attack because all your attacking players, all your players are already in the opposition half.
they seem to be very good at creating space within the opponent, and often centrally. And I'm going to try and show you how they do that. So let's start with the basic structure, because like many of his contemporaries, Postecoglou enforces a very rigid structure in possession. And in build-up, this is what it looks like. Straight away, you can see the emphasis on putting players in central areas rather than out wide. They do that with the centre-backs, they do it with the pivot, but notably they do it with the full-backs, who, as you probably already know, are essentially midfielders in.
And that is where Trent Alexander-Arnold will really flourish under Ange, because he is a attacking fullback. He is a creative fullback. He is very technically gifted, and if you get him into a central position, right, and take away the responsibility of defending, he will flourish.
In this system, though most people tend to call them inverted fullbacks. Regardless, what these players give you is a numerical overload in the middle, 6 or more players depending on what the 8s are doing, and often that's all it takes to progress the ball through. So this is a.
So again, you have, you just saw that little shift where the ball came from defense to midfield, and now you attack, right? And then in his system, there's no tracking back, right? There's no closing down of players, right? So which means you can leave Vinicius and Mbappe up front, right? They're not pushing forward, right? You have Bellingham in the middle dictating as he sees fit. He'll allow him to make those decisions himself. He doesn't have to be in this rigid structure like Alonso put those players.
Structure that prioritizes creating passing options by bringing a lot of players into the middle, rather than the more traditional approach, which is to try and generate space by spreading your backline wide.
Yeah, so in Alonso's system, the wide players had to stay wide, the wingers, right? And then you'd have the forward pressing. Whereas like with Ange ball, it's like literally like come into the center, right? Congest the center, right? So then you create these passing options, which is what Real Madrid really flourishes on. Okay, you can't. When you have those egos, when you have those talents, you can't manage them to. You can't coach them in a way to be like you have to be there, you have to do this role. Okay, if you're somebody like Mbappe, if you're somebody like Vinicius, you're like no, like look, man, I'm the best player in the world. I'm going to do what I think is the right thing to do, and Ange ball allows those players to have that trust in them,
and making the pitch as big as possible. But these inverted fullbacks aren't just about numbers; they're also about patterns. Because you'll notice Spurs repeatedly create the same shapes in build-up, which are these kind of 4 triangles around the pivot. And triangles themselves are extremely important to Postecoglou. You'll see them pop up all the time throughout this video.
Yeah, and Real Madrid is used to it. These were the triangles created by Casemiro, Cruz, and Modric. You had Valverde in there. You had the, Marcelo from left back coming in, to create those passing triangles. So Real Madrid are already used to in the history with these passing options. It is something that they have already seen there.
But in build-up specifically, when you're getting pressed, triangles give you easy access to the third man, which is just a great way to evade pressure. For example, you'll often see the third man pass through Bissouma, the pivot, into a centre-back to evade the press. So you put these things together, the numerical overloads in the middle, plus these passing patterns, and you start to see how Spurs move through their opponent. I love this build-up sequence against Man United because it combines all of those elements.
And this is the, basically the passing structure of Ange ball. Let's dive into this a video by The Athletic about when he first arrived.
Tottenham manager, but not everyone's convinced about it. They say things like, I don't know who that guy is. It's easy to win stuff in Scotland, and he doesn't.
And that's a big thing. People will scoff at him because he doesn't have the glamorous CV. He never played at the highest level. But uh, Real Madrid is a different club. It's a different beast, and sometimes you need different ideas for it to work there.
Have Premier League experience. What can he know? Well, I'm going to try and tell you why he's perfect for Tottenham, but also where the difficulties may lie and where you might experience.
The other thing is why he was so attractive for Tottenham was, the Spurs believe in you have to play the Tottenham way, which is on the front foot, attacking flair football. And again, that is the same demands that are wanted by Real Madrid, right? They want to be entertained by exciting players, right? You can't be boring and play pragmatic football. You can't be overly coached. You can't be overly structurized. That is something that Real Madrid fans will not tolerate.
Some bumps in the road. For example, a hard truth. Spurs are now not a top 4 club. This season they finished 8th on 60 points. That is bad. But when you look at the table, you start to see a real problem because Man City are going to win the league forever now. In Chelsea, they're going to be back next season. That top 7, and to be better you have to Spurs in a bad way, disconnect with the fans, and a squad that plays this kind of very negative defensive football in a 3-4-3 where they sit back and
that was a similar defensive structure that Alonso used. A lot of sitting back, a lot of defensive organization, and that is something that was really hated at Real Madrid, which is what the players hated, which is led to the inevitable sacking of Alonso.
Encourage teams to come onto them, so they leave space behind just so they can exploit them on the counter-attack and use these very good front three. Then the front three aren't really supported by anyone with creativity behind them. All the midfielders are 6s or 8s. All these guys, look at them. All of these guys.
And this is another reason why it didn't really work at Real Madrid for Alonso, is because he was playing counter-attacking football to have these the really fast wingers, the speed of Mbappe going through the middle, but that they want to have more control. They want to have more reign over their football, right? Which is what I'm saying is when you watch now the analysis he will do on Ange Ball, is you will see it that it will fit with the Real Madrid players.
Suit playing in a very kind of a middling defensive kind of midfield position rather than getting behind the striker and threading through balls in. And then really the fullbacks they've got are wing backs. What I'm trying to say essentially is this team has been built to play transitional counter-attack football in a 3-4-3 formation. That's what Spurs have built, and the football is not good, the fans don't like it, and it's going badly. So why is Postecoglou the best choice? Well, it's because he plays great football. It will not look like this. Now we can sort of work out what that might look like based on what his previous teams have looked like. So you'll most likely get a kind of 4-3-3 shape. This is what he played at Celtic. You play a 4-2-3-1, you played a 3-4-3 for Australia. But regardless of shape, they will be attacking, they will be intense, they will win the ball high up the pitch. And he uses.
Isn't that what you want at Real Madrid? Isn't that what the fans demand? Isn't that the way that the players there, the big egos want? The big egos at Real Madrid is that they want to have those opportunities to have those big moments, right? And Ange will put the players in the right positions for Mbappe to keep scoring, for Vinicius to keep scoring, for Bellingham to keep getting assists and scoring goals, right? Like you have all these players, Valverde, Arda Güler, Diaz, Garcia, all coming in and contributing, with their flair, and then there will be the match winners. You have that each week you have scorelines of 5-6 goals because that is just what Ange wants. Okay, this is why he is the perfect manager for Real Madrid.
This is a version of positional play similar to what Pep Guardiola does. It's a bit more direct. What you'll often get is wide wingers. They'll stick wide here. Then the 2 8s will kind of attack the space between the winger and the forwards. When you get in the final third, of course, the wingers can come off the wide areas and come in to attack the half spaces, because the half spaces are something that Postecoglou really likes. You get lots of underlapping runs, particularly from the 8s into these positions to try and score.
So 8s like Jude Bellingham, he would love that space to run into it and contribute
goals. And it's all nice, neat and tidy, 1-2s, they'll swap positions, loads of positional rotation.
Isn't that what Real Madrid is famous for? Isn't that what they do? They get in these positions, they rotate, they use the intelligence. This is why you have players of that quality, of that intelligence. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to kind of play on instinct. They want that freedom to express themselves, right? And within Ange Ball, like, it is a structure that allows that creative flair, that creativity to be freed, to be explored.
In these areas, to be able to create these sorts of things. But then again, if you look at the players you've got, Højbjerg, Bentancur, not really the best at doing that sort of thing right now.
Which is why a lot of the reason why it didn't work at at Spurs for Ange, right? Like a lot of the thing, you have to remember that when Ange came into the league, after 10 games in the Premier League, the first 10 games, he was top of the league, right? So it was high risk, high reward football, right? But in the end, through injuries, through a lack of quality, his football was not sustainable, right? But if you was to give him the type of players at his disposal that he would have at Real Madrid, okay, this wouldn't be an issue, right? And you think about, you have this mindset of a manager who is going to go for the kill, go for the jugular every single game. It would be, I mean, Florentino Perez, I'm sure he watches this live stream. I'm sure he's going to get great ideas off me. But what I'm saying is, if he was to just give him a year's contract, right? No risk, just 1 year, right? Let's see what you can do, right? Because all the other managers, right, have they lack the balls to do what he does, right? Jose Mourinho, very defensive, very structured. Okay, Carlo Ancelotti is probably the only manager left that can do what Real Madrid need, right? Alonso didn't work, right? And Alonso, if you look at Alonso, Arteta, De Zerbi, all these managers, Guardiola, like they're very structured, right? The only managers that would fit in at Real Madrid right now, possibly Klopp, right? Jurgen Klopp will do a job there, but again, his style demands a real buy-in, and you have to really run through a brick wall for him, okay? And now he's got the power to motivate that dressing room into doing that for him. But again, if you look at Roberto Firmino, really had to sacrifice himself at top for Mane and Salah, right? So, you have to really look at which player out the front three is going to sacrifice himself for Mbappe and Vinicius, right? I don't think, and the reason why previous Real Madrid teams were successful is because Benzema really sacrificed a lot of his game for Cristiano. Okay, you have to remember that. Is Mbappe won't sacrifice himself. Vinicius won't sacrifice himself, right? So you have to really find these players who are willing to do the dirty job. But whereas with Ange Ball, right, he will just be like, look, I'll get you to those positions, and then you just work out between yourselves, right? He's very much a vibes type manager, right? He's not about, and even his if you the players from the Tottenham dressing room, they were saying that with Thomas Frank, who recently got sacked, his training sessions were very long, very drawn out, very analytical, and you're always worried about what the opposition was doing. Whereas with Ange, his training sessions were very short and intense, which is what Real Madrid players would love, right? Short, intense sessions where they get to just have fun, play ball, get a good workout in, really put themselves through the gears, show themselves, and see what they can do in training, right? And then really just relax, and then for the actual game, okay? Because you need to be in top physical condition. You need to be able to play with high intensity on match day, and a lot of the time, Ange, he knows how to prepare those players better than he would lower quality players.
And then what you might also get is the fullbacks will invert. So the left-sided fullback for Celtic, Greg Taylor, would often come inside the pitch. So in build-up, you'd see something like this. You'd have a back two, you'd have a three, with the right back wider, because the right back for Celtic was more of an outside overlapper, which of course is useful if it's Pedro Porro, because if he goes inside like that. Further back, you get this. When they push high up the pitch, as they will do to keep possession, Davies.
Yeah, and imagine, you have Rudiger, you have Alaba, you have all these great players that Real Madrid have pushing up high, squeezing the opposition, right? Win the ball back quickly, and then they'll be on the front foot to feed those balls back into Bellingham, back into Valverde, to feed Vinicius and Mbappe, right? Yeah, so like I was saying, is that like the only managers in world football right now, it'll be Jurgen Klopp is an option. Jose Mourinho, I don't think you can go back, and especially with the last week what happened with Vinicius at playing at Benfica, the racist abuse he got, and then Mourinho didn't back him, so I don't think he'll be welcomed anymore at Real Madrid. Carlo Ancelotti, is too old maybe at this stage. Even if he was to come maybe for one or 2 years, Zidane could, but he wants to be managed, the France and win a World Cup for them. So you look around, and all the managers right now, there are these possession style dictators. It's interesting what Fabregas is doing at Como. that is more of a Real Madrid style, I would imagine. But again, is he relies on that total dictatorship, that overcoaching, that modern players, the elite players like Mbappe would not like. I believe, the only people who would fit right now is Klopp. Luis Enrique would do a job there. Again, because he's that type of to allow that freedom. But then, um, he had Mbappe at PSG and it didn't work, right? And again, the reason he worked with Dembele is because he was a high pressing, hard working, false nine centre forward. So even Luis Enrique, right, who is the current winner with PSG, the world's best coach, he wouldn't fit in at Real Madrid, right? So you really have to think about like who is it that will be doing, who can do a job there, and I really believe that it is Ange, because Ange ball is so far removed from whatever the current trend in football, right? It is totally different. It is totally what Real Madrid need.
If this is the fullback that they use here, will then arrive in these sorts of half spaces. But what you might get is there's lots of play, but they want it in that way. High possession, high intensity, win the ball high up the pitch. This is what you'll...
High intensity, win the ball back high up the pitch, right? That is exactly the ethos, the philosophy of Real Madrid. And Ange says, he always wins in his second season, right? So regardless, even if it doesn't work in the first season, right? The second season, like you're in for a trophy haul, right? He will win. He will win La Liga. He will win the European Cup. He will bring the 16th Champions League trophy back to the Bernabéu.
Probably get from Spurs something like this. But of course, there are big differences to what Celtic had in the Scottish Premiership. They were the best team, as we say, by miles. And these players do not exactly suit this. This will take a lot of coaching.
See what he just said there, right? He went to Celtic. They had the best team there by miles, and it worked, right? That was in the Scottish Premier League, right? If you put Ange Postecoglou in Real Madrid, a team which is miles, but so far ahead in terms of quality, right? Miles better than any of the competition, right? Bar Barcelona, who can probably match them. He's bound to work there, right? And he's a very charismatic guy. He's a very likable guy. Players really buy into him. They really buy into his philosophy, his ideas. They really like him. He's a charismatic guy. He will really be the type of person that will succeed at the Bernabéu.
To make this work. The good thing is that Postecoglou's teams are always successful. He wins everywhere he goes and makes teams better. His record is astonishing if you go back through his career.
Isn't that what you want? A manager that wins, a winning mentality, right? And look, he can only win at the places where you put him, right? You can only win. So he won in Australia, he won in Japan, he won in Scotland, right? And he also won in the Premier League, right? Now his league form was really crazy, but then he also had a lot of injuries, and he didn't have the quality players to do what was needed, Whereas at Real Madrid in Spain, he will be able to really dominate the league, dominate the opposition, and bring success.
He's won league titles in 3 different countries. His Brisbane Roar side have been described in various interviews as the most entertaining or the best club side to watch in Australian domestic football history. He turned Australia in
the best team to watch in Australian history, right? Now that doesn't sound like nothing, right? That doesn't sound like much, because we're talking about European football here, right? We're very spoiled because we are in European football is at the pinnacle in the world. But he can only do what he can where he is, right? So put him in the right environment, the guy will thrive.
To a team that wins stuff. He got them the 2014 World Cup. They were good. Then they won their first ever Asian Cup there. Then he went to Japan, where his team, Yokohama, were described as Pep Guardiola as being incredible.
Described as Pep Guardiola because in the sense that it was just so attacking, so crazy, so front-footed, volatile football.
Then he went to Celtic, where he dominated. He won 5 out of 6 trophies, and they scored more goals this season than Celtic ever have since.
More goals than Celtic have ever have, right? Wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want more goals at Real Madrid, right? This is what I'm saying, man. It is a crazy shout. It is a left field shout. It is an out of the box idea, right? But Ange won't work at like a mid-table club in the Premier League. It just won't work, okay? Because you don't have that quality of players. He would do a job. Like really, what Ange needs to do. He needs to build his reputation up again, okay? He needs what he needs to do. He needs to go to Spain, right? Because I think he really needs to go to Spain. Uh, just pick any team in Spain and let him do his magic there, right? Let him manage. Imagine him at a Seville, right? Imagine him at a Villarreal, a Valencia. Okay, he would really put in a serious Europa League run. He will probably win the Europa League. He will get him into Champions League spots. And that will then create a buzz and attention, which will probably land him the Real Madrid job then, right? Because then the Spanish media will talk him up. And he will become a fan's favorite. This is something that he needs to really consider. He needs to go to Spain, build his career up again, because I think the next step, right, is he probably won't get the Real Madrid job next, but the next club is a stepping stone for him to get a big job, right? And the biggest job in the world is Real Madrid.
1938. Basically, he's really good at what he does, but it will take time. This is the problem you've got. To make this work for this sort of team, you're going to have to do a lot of coaching.
That was at Tottenham, right? Because Tottenham wasn't built that. Tottenham came off the back of years with Nuno Santos, Conte, Jose Mourinho. So these very defense-minded coaches, right, really ripped apart what Pochettino was doing, right, at Real Madrid, at Tottenham. So you had this defensively minded team now playing attacking football, and so he just didn't have the players at his disposal, right? But at Real Madrid, the situation is totally different. It is an environment built for his system to
and also
thrive.
probably bring in different players. Like we say, Højbjerg, Bentancur are not the sort of number guy. They're like, I don't know who this guy is. He won't be very good. What's he know? But it took time. His first game in charge of Celtic was outside, while the midfielder came outside. So then you start creating these lovely passing routines that teams can't work out how to press against. So you
Again, isn't that what Real Madrid needs, right? Teams that press with high intensity in the modern game, like Barcelona, like Man City. These teams really press you. Whereas like he will then be able to instill this philosophy into the Real Madrid players where they become unpressable because they have the technical ability to create these triangles and play out from the back, creating really fast transition football where they take the ball from one end of the field to the other and end up flooding the opponent's half and scoring goals.
get advantages like a 3v2 in the press from this area, or when you move up the pitch, you start getting more players turning up that you wouldn't expect, like the inverted fullback turns up to score a goal while the
imagine just Trent Alexander-Arnold just going up there to score a goal like he has for Liverpool. This is a coach who he won't work anywhere else, right? This is the funny thing about him. Ange won't work anywhere else, right? Because his football is so out of control, so attacking, right? It is literally like a fucking Kalashnikov. It is like an Uzi, just spraying bullets everywhere, right? And that only works when you have the strongest weapons available to you, which what is Real Madrid has.
centre forward passes it through to him. All these things take time. And of course, the recruitment is essential. They have to bring different players in to play the way he wants. But
but at Real Madrid, the recruitment's already there. Real Madrid already has the recruitment done. Okay, you literally just have to slot him in now, right? Okay, and then everything else will take care of itself, right? Like this is I think it will be the most genius stroke, right? That Florentino Perez could do for Real Madrid right now. Okay, it is a club that is built for Ange.
good coaches can often make players better. That's one of the things that coaching does. And you see players that have been to Man City with Guardiola, Fabian Delph. Some of these have improved massively under good coaching. Who's to say that Postecoglou couldn't do that as well? Just because Mourinho and Conte couldn't do it doesn't mean this guy from Australia can't. And to reiterate, this is a team built to play defensive football. All the rotations and the movement, all this sort of stuff that we'll probably see at some point under Postecoglou, and we'll cover it in future videos. That's
And you have to remember, like he took, right, in the first 10 games of the Premier League, he took a very defensive-minded team, a very defensive structured team, right, built for defensive football, right, barring Son and Kane up front. He turned them into, when Kane left, right, because Kane left before preseason was over and went to Bayern Munich. He turned them into a top 10 team in the Premier League. Right. So at Real Madrid, he will literally hit the ground running. There won't be no bedding in period because the players will naturally gravitate towards him. And you have to remember, like he's been trained and mentored by a former Galactico, a former Real Madrid superstar in Frank Puskas himself.
Something that will take time to coach on the training ground. And Spurs need to work out what they're going to accept, because if he has a similarly bad start to his career with Spurs, like he did at Celtic, the pressure's going to pile on, the players will lose confidence, he might not get the players in that he needs, and then he has to start deviating from what he wants to do to try and win. Be more pragmatic, they'll say. Be more pragmatic, play defensively here, don't try and play out from the back all the time. But I'll tell you what, there is absolutely no way in hell Postecoglou is going to deviate from the way he plays. He sticks to what he knows. If you watch any interview or read anything with him, any ex-players or coaches say the same thing. They say single-minded, strong-minded. What he says.
And that's what you need. You need a strong-minded coach, a strong-minded man, philosophy, who stands for what he believes in, right? It'll be complete and utter chaos, right? But it will be the most entertaining era in Real Madrid history if you allow him to be in the dugout. If you make him manager of your football club, Real Madrid, then he will be an absolute legend very, very quickly.
Goes. He is a disciplinarian, also a father figure. Harry Kuehl described.
Isn't that what Ancelotti was, a father figure to his players, right? Isn't that what Mourinho was, a disciplinarian, right? You get the best of both worlds, right? You get this attack-minded father figure with the disciplinary tendencies as well.
Him saying he doesn't have a black and white, he has black. That's what he wants. This one.
Yeah, so he doesn't even think in black and white, right? Most people say there's a whole array of colors, right? He doesn't even think in binaries. He just thinks in one. And he obviously said he only thinks in black. At Real Madrid, he will only think in white.
Singular vision. And everyone has to buy into that, and that's how his teams will play. If he's getting battered for.
Yeah, so he is a man manager. He is somebody who can motivate. You just have to type into Google, Postecoglou, Australia, motivational speech, right? And then he'll come up the speech he gave to the Australian players. He really got them to buy in into his philosophy, into his playing style, and that is why the Australian team was as successful as they were ever. Obviously Australia isn't a historically footballing nation, so you're not gonna, he's not gonna win the World Cup with them because it just doesn't produce that level of player. But give him the resources, give him those players that can win and bring success. He will be the one to unify them and harmonize the dressing room.
4-0 playing attacking football, he won't change from it. I'm sure there'll be deviations now and again with certain tactics, but that's what you'll see. And he says why. The reason I get my teams to play this way is because I've had a lot of success and I'll continue to have success with it.
Yeah, and that is a very simple way of saying, of seeing the world, really, right? Like, the reason I get my teams to play the way is because I've had a lot of success and I'll continue to have success with it, right? That doesn't even mean anything, right? The reason why I do it is because it brings success, basically, right? Well, why does Real Madrid spend huge sums of money on players? Because the best players in the world bring you success, right? It is this isn't overthinking it. He isn't trying to reinvent, become this tactical genius like somebody like Guardiola, right? He's not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's literally just going to be putting the most attacking, the best players in the world in the rightful positions. And he's literally going to dominate and outscore the opposition, right? It will be crazy score lines. It will be like, 5-3s. It'll be like 6-2s. It'll be like 4-3s. It'll be 5-4s, right? 3-0s, right? It'll be like hat trick after hat trick. Okay, but that is what you go to watch a football game with, right? It is you want to watch goals. You want to be entertained. You want to see the best players perform at their peak. And this is what Ange does, right?
So he's good at that. That's what works for him. That's what he'll try and do at Spurs. If the recruitment matches what he wants to do, they'll be fine. If he gets the time to develop the best one they could possibly get right now, to build them to back up to that top 4 position they want to be in.
To some of the world's best.
Okay, let's jump into this other guy. I've got 2 more videos. I don't know if you have time to go through all of them, but let's jump into this one.
If you're like me, then you're probably thinking that Ange Postecoglou has been a breath of fresh air in the Premier League.
Isn't that what Real Madrid need right now? A breath of fresh air. Don't they need someone to breathe life back into the club, right? The club is in disarray, okay? I think they just lost over the weekend. Let me go to, who is it? Osasuna. They lost 2-1 to Osasuna. Benicio scored. but it's a club that is not united. It's a club that is not you know uh, playing to its best abilities, to its highest standards that it has set for itself. Okay, and Ange is somebody to breathe fresh air back into the club.
Not just for his entertaining press conferences,
And he can handle the press. He can handle press conferences. Like I said, the English media was very, disgustingly rude sometimes towards him, right? Whereas, like in Spain, he'll win. He'll win matches. He'll keep everyone happy, and he's very charming when he's in a good mood, right? So again, he'll be able to handle the media.
I'm 57 years old, mate.
but also for his style of play. Spurs have tried trusted names, and it's time for something different. And every manager that goes on to be a great needs to be given a chance to do so at some point. Barcelona allowed their B team manager.
Yeah, this is what I mean. You need to give someone a new chance. Okay, you need to allow somebody with new ideas, a new perspective to come in and breathe life into
to take
your
over,
football club.
and he went on to be one of the greatest minds in football history. Arsenal took a chance on a French manager who was working in Japan. Manchester United brought in a manager who made the Scottish League look.
Yeah, all these clubs, Barcelona, Manchester United, Arsenal, they took a chance on the relatively unknown, right? But I believe that Ange has enough of a track record now. He has enough experience that I can see his philosophy, I can see his tactics, and I understand what he's about, what he's trying to accomplish here. And give him time and space, give him the opportunity, give him the resources. And Real Madrid is the club, the number one spot for him to come in and do a job.
Easy. Whoa, before you write that, no, I don't bring up these examples to say whether Ange will or won't be better, let alone as good as any of these managers in the Premier League. This is just to illustrate that everyone who was great or is great needed to be given a chance to be as such. Anyone who succeeds needs to be.
Yeah, he's a manager that has succeeded at every club that he's ever been at, right? So if you're saying he's never won the European club, he's never played in the Champions League. I think he played like a preliminary round at Celtic, and he got knocked out before he could get to the group stages with Celtic, right? But by the time he got to Tottenham, they weren't in the Champions League anymore, right? In fact, he's the one who got him into the Champions League this season, but he was sacked before he was even allowed for him to enter that competition, right? So it's not down to him, right? If you give him a club that is in the Champions League, you will see how well he can really do.
Be given a chance.
And you have to remember like Tottenham in the Champions League this year with Thomas Frank as manager there, he got them in the top 5 in the league phase, right? So he finished 5th, I think, right? Like, so that is what the Thomas Frank did with the squad. What could Ange Postecoglou do?
To do so. Ange is a smooth operator in press conferences. He's stubborn as a mule with his approach, and that
Exactly. He's stubborn as a mule. He's charismatic. Yeah, he is this. He's got the personality and temperament to manage a big club, right? And he's got that Australian, like laid back approach as well, where it's like, yeah, I don't give a shit, like, yeah, like I'm 54 years old, mate. Like, like mate this, mate that. It is sometimes you just need that character that he has. He has the right temperament. He's a chilled out guy. Who you don't want to get on the wrong side of either, right? So he's no pushover, okay, and he's not going to, overly overanalyze things. He's going to keep it simple. He's going to keep it look, ball, players, net, ball, goal, right? Literally, he's going to keep it very simple. He is the right man to bring success to Real Madrid.
That's what's brought him success, from Australia to Japan and Scotland, sticking to his philosophies, sticking to what he believes in and what has worked for him throughout his career. As Ange himself has said, every job he has taken on at the club level has been an overhaul, and he's been successful with almost every one of them. Spurs are a club that could use an overhaul as well. This is where Ange Postecoglou.
And this thing, Real Madrid doesn't need an overhaul, right? Real Madrid is plug and play, right? They have the players, they have the funds, right? Like any players that he still needs next season, like a more better defender. They might come in for William Saliba, right? Next season from Arsenal, right? Or Mickey van der Ven from Tottenham, right? So if you get these, really world-class solid defenders, right, put them in a position where they can thrive under his system, you're going to see them being defensively okay, right? right? But you don't need to be defensively solid if you're scoring 5-6 goals every game, right? So it's going to be absolute chaos. It's going to be something fun to watch. The most entertaining brand of football in the world at the Santiago Bernabéu at Real Madrid with Ange Postecoglou as head coach.
Postecoglou came from and how he has beaten the odds and his detractors everywhere he's gone.
Keep the ball down, right? Like that's it. Just ball down, play, right? And he proves everyone wrong. Everyone always says that this guy hasn't got a clue, that he can't, but he always silenced the doubters, right? The coldest line in football, right? One of the coldest things I ever heard is I'll always win in my second season, right? And then he took the worst ever Tottenham team, right, who were possibly going to be relegated last season, finished I think 17th, right? Narrowly avoided a relegation battle, right? And he got him to win a European trophy, right? Like, it is a crazy story. It's a crazy statement. And when he said it, people laughed, right? But he silenced all his critics. And that is the type of temperament, that is the type of manager that Real Madrid need.
Now, I'm sure when you first read his name, whether that be when... Tell him.
Ange Postecoglou.
So, Ange was born in a suburb of Athens called Nea Philadelphia. Go ahead, you can
I'm going to be folding a
get me on the pronunciation of the rundown. That was instilled in him, and he was an incredibly hard man, according to Ange. He was difficult to please, bordering on impossible to please, really.
When I walk out, my old man's next to me. He's a hard man, my old man.
I mean, he sounds like the kind of guy who, no matter what you did, this kind of environment can cause some to wilt. He lived them as a player as well.
There you go, this bit. This is what I want to show you, playing under Puskas.
So Ange Postecoglou joined South Melbourne when he was just 12 years old, the same team that he would often watch alongside his father on the weekends. You know, when we were talking about souvlaki in the park, yeah, you got it. Playing as a left back, he won his first title in 1984 with South Melbourne Hellas. They dropped the Hellas part of the name eventually, by the way, and Ange even went on to captain the side. Now, at this time, football wasn't professional yet in Australia. It was still considered amateur prior to the league evolving into what is the modern day A-League. However, despite the technically amateur status of the league, there was still enough of a draw to bring in none other than legendary player Ferenc Puskás as their manager in 1980.
And there you go. You can see him there, Ferenc Puskás. He is in his white Real Madrid kit, you know, in Los Blancos, with the Real Madrid badge there, right? He is a Real Madrid legend. He is somebody who understands the club. And, you know, like, how full circle would that be in his story, right? Like, you have this manager that everyone doubted, right? Comes from semi-professional. He played semi-professional football. Never made it as a pro because Australia wasn't a pro league. Becomes a world-class manager, becomes somebody who wins trophies wherever he goes, right? Is laughed at by the media, drops the coldest line in football history and says, you know, I'll always win the second season, and then delivers on the words he spoke, right? Taught under, mentored by Francis Puskás, right? And former Real Madrid legend, right? The Puskás Award is named after him, right? Hungarian legend. Taught under him, a former Real Madrid mentor of his, and then he goes on to manage Real Madrid and bring back a European Cup. It is written in the stars. It is blockbuster. It is what the world needs. It is what Real Madrid needs. Okay, I am waiting for Perez to sign him up in the summer, bring him in, allow him to, you know, put his ideas, his system into place, give him a 2-year contract. Okay, and then if he doesn't deliver in his second season, right, you know, get rid of him. But as he always says, he delivers. He wins in his second season.
89. Given Puskás had managed for a few years in Greece, Postecoglou actually ended up being not just his captain, but also would interpret for the manager, as well as sometimes moonlight as...
Again, and who else is a famous interpreter that has gone on to dominate world football? It is Jose Mourinho, right? He was the former interpreter of Sir Bobby Robson. Okay, and that is how he ended up at Real Madrid, and that is at Barcelona, and that is how he ended up being assistant to not only Bobby Robson but also Louis van Gaal, and that is how he developed his own management style and then became a Real Madrid manager and brought success to that club. Okay, so there's a common theme is like you know, Jose Mourinho learned so much being a translator to Sir Bobby Robson, where they talked about football philosophy, talked about tactics, talked about how to manage the club, the media, the squad, you know, and if Ange, if Postecoglou was the interpreter of Puskas, then it only makes sense that they had these discussions as well, right? He probably done the team talks for him, right? He would say something, and then he would have to say vicariously, he is like um learning and giving the actual speech to the team as the captain, right? So he has this, he has the background, he has the knowledge, he has the tutelage, right? Like, you know, like a prince who is groomed to rule and become king. That is what Puskas was doing with Ange. Okay. Um, the only thing that is needed is for him to get the opportunity to manage the Galacticos.
His driver. Now, as we mentioned, Postecoglou's father is a massive influence on both his values and his footballing philosophy, but Puskás will have played his own role in Postecoglou's approach as a manager as well, including his attacking 4-3-3 formation, though Puskás didn't play with inverted fullbacks, of course, not at that time. But anyway, as Postecoglou put it, quote, anyone would say his teams just wanted to outscore the opposition. That's all he wanted to do. He goes, we will win 5-4 every week and I'll enjoy it. I was a defender, so we copped 4 goals and I was like, shit, but he was buzzing because what a game. They scored great goals, we scored great goals. That's just not right. But it was right because what it did was, for us as players, it released us of that fear of, oh, we've just conceded a goal, what a tragedy. It became, oh, we've conceded a goal, let's go up and score 2.
And that is his mentality. That is his football. It is fearless. It is a killer instinct. It is something that most coaches would not dare to dream. Okay, because most coaches are managing at clubs that don't have the history, they don't have the ambition, they don't have the elite level of mentality that Real Madrid has. Okay, Real Madrid is its own belly. It is its own beast. Okay, it brings its own problems, and it needs a different style of manager to produce results there.
It doesn't matter, it's all right. He provided that security blanket. We ended up being champions that year.
Yeah, so he will literally outscore you. He will outscore the opposition. He will absolutely destroy teams. He will not be worried about how much we concede, right? And that is what Real Madrid is about, right? Like even you know, if you look at its you know, the last like 4 or 5 Champions League wins that he's had, right? Like I remember the La Decima, Atletico were, you know, they were taken to extra time, and then, you know, last minute you have Sergio Ramos scores like a goal, and then Cristiano scores a goal to win 4-2, right, in extra time. Okay, to stop the game from going to penalties, or to stop it going to extra time. I can't remember which one, but anyway, the game ended 4-2, and it was that drama, okay, which Real Madrid thrive on. Okay, it was absolutely, you know, last ditch effort and finally winning the goal to lift the European trophy. Okay, I remember Benzema again against Man City. They were down and out, and then, you know, or was it at Stamford Bridge? Benzema comes along and scores 2 goals in the dying minutes of the game, right? So it is that drama that comes from playing this attacking football, this kamikaze football, this football style, which Ange will bring. Okay, which is why the fans will love him, which is why the players will love him, and the success he will bring. You know, Florentino Perez will love him. Okay, he will put in. You know, they'll probably go out and buy more attacking players, right, for him to try and fit in, and he will do it. He will manage to put in. It will be literally 9 strikers, 9 forwards, and just Rudiger in the back holding the fort.
Under Puskás, Postecoglou won his 2nd title with South Melbourne, as well as a cup. But due to injury issues, Postecoglou was forced into retirement at the age of 27. But he didn't stay away for long. He would go on to be the head coach of South Melbourne in under 3 years. As the head coach of South Melbourne, Postecoglou began to put his outlook on football, shaped by both the influence of his father and Puskás, into practice tactically. He became the head coach in 1996, and by the 97-98 season, they were champions again for the first time since Puskás led them to victory. The following season, they defended their title and were also crowned champions of Oceania, meaning they got the chance to go to the Club World Cup, where South Melbourne held their own, but ultimately fell to Sir Alex Ferguson's treble-winning Manchester United.
So you know, you have this manager from this lower league, and he's like, his whole life he's rubbed shoulders with fucking legends, right? Like Puskas, right? How crazy is that this Real Madrid legend ends up in Australia, Melbourne, to coach this random team, and then the guy that speaks Greek ends up becoming his mentor, right? There is this sense of destiny about his story that I get, right? There is this, you know, this fight that he had, but, you know, prevailing all the unlikely events, all the doubters, the naysayers, right? Then, you know, he his career's ended tragically. Then he decides, I'm going to be a manager now because he's learned of Puskas. Then he goes on, and within a couple of years, he ends up playing Manchester United at the World Club Championship, right? Which was like the first time it was ever held in Rio de Janeiro. And he went there and obviously got knocked out because it's just the quality is not there. But then he rubbed shoulders with Sir Alex Ferguson, right? So early as a manager. Then, he wins everywhere he goes. He comes to the Premier League. He's given these opportunities, right? He's learning all the time. And, he sticks to his ideals. He sticks to his guns. He sticks to his philosophy. I think this is a movie that you're watching right now, okay? And the final chapter, the final season of the TV series is him going to Real Madrid and winning the European Cup.
2-0. Postecoglou flirted with the Australian national team job on a few occasions, but having fallen short of the senior job during the interview process, Postecoglou was handed the keys to the youth teams. While he did well for them, with Australia changing from the Oceania Confederation to the Asian Confederation, Australia was suddenly faced with said challenge when it came to qualifying for tournaments. Unfortunately for a young Postecoglou, he failed to guide Australia to the U20 World Cup. Now, this is where Postecoglou's career felt like it was up in the air. As a result of the failure to qualify, Postecoglou was interviewed by Craig Foster, who essentially argued to Postecoglou that he should be replaced due to his failure with the U20s. It got pretty heated. Take a look.
Well, it says a lot about our football.
I don't sit in glass houses,
our
mate. I'm out
standards.
there.
Well, mate, listen, what I'm saying is, if I didn't qualify the team
you were
twice,
there-
like
His reputation had certainly taken a hit from
That's what I mean. Like he's on live TV doing debates, being called out for his shortcomings, but he's ready to fight. He's ready to back himself. He is willing to, push himself to the limit to get the success that he is destined for. And I believe, it is a crazy idea. Florentino Perez probably won't do it, but if he does, if he has any insight, if he has any balls to try out something new, something that is unique, the only manager that can bring success and unify the dressing room at Real Madrid right now is Ange Postecoglou. Okay, you heard it here, folks. First, all right, folks. That is it for today. If you understand what I was trying to say, let me know in the comments. What are your thoughts? It'd be interesting discussion. I think, many people, obviously, you have to park his failings at Tottenham, right? The league form at Tottenham, and you have to just put it down to injuries, right? But at Real Madrid, with the players they got, with the squad they got, with the history they got, right, the drama, the entertainment that they need, right? Ange will fix all. Okay, but that is it for today. Thank you very much, and I will see you soon.